So today it is Johann Sebastian Bach's birthday, and this is Music Drive number 10. My name is Florentin and welcome to my YouTube channel. Johann Sebastian Bach is one of the best composers that ever lived. He was a composer from the Baroque period. The Baroque period occurred roughly during the 1600s and the early 1700s. Johann Sebastian Bach was born in 1685 and he lived until 1750, which was a long life for that period. He is considered one of the top 3 composers that ever lived. The top 3 being Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven. And many consider him to be the best, the greatest composer that ever lived. In our recorded history anyways, and as far as we can tell from the music that has been left behind. What I mean by that, there were other composers before Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and Vivaldi and Schumann and Verdi and Wagner. But if you go farther back, if you go 1,000 years or 1,500 years back, there's just not enough evidence of the music that these people wrote. For example, we know that King Solomon was a composer. Obviously, his father, King David, was a composer. But for King Solomon, we know for sure that he wrote at least 1,000 songs. We know that the Old Testament says that 1,005 or something like that songs. But there's no record of the music. There's been much debate about that. That the original manuscripts might contain some indication of the melodic movement and things like that. It's just not true. There's no indication of what the music sounded like in the music of David or King Solomon or anybody around that time. So basically, our notated music goes back to the Dark Ages, and that's about it. We don't really have a lot of music that's written out that survived to today. So just keep that in mind when we say the greatest composers would be somebody like Bach, Mozart, Beethoven. We're really referring to the last 500 years, 600 years, because that's all the written music that we have. How do musicians decide what a great composer is? And I'm not talking about modern composers, I'm talking about composers that have passed away. Basically, at least a couple of things. Number one, the composer has to have written a great body of works, a large amount of music. And it has to have survived until today, obviously, because there's no other way to really look at it if it hasn't survived. So Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart, and the chronological order there is Bach, Mozart, and Beethoven, are usually considered top 3. And Bach is often considered the greatest composer that ever lived. He is my favorite composer. Absolutely, no question about it. Today is his birthday. He was born in 1685, and I stink at math, so to do a little bit of math there, if he would be alive, he passed away 269 years ago, but if he was alive today, 1685, we have 200, 215. My math is not very good and it's early in the morning. But today is his birthday, and I wanted to make this video to honor him and to remember him. He is my absolute favorite composer. I remember being 11 or 12 and teaching myself how to play the classical guitar. We were poor. I had a cheap guitar, no teacher. Grew up in a small East European country. Poor country, poor family. And it was very difficult. And I'm thankful for it because it made me work very hard. And I did work very hard. And I remember sitting in the kitchen and trying to learn Bach's Bouree, which he originally wrote for the lute. It's part of his first lute suite in E minor for the lute, which was later transcribed for the classical guitar. And that was the first Bach piece that I ever tried to learn. Now at the time, I was a late beginner. I was reading scores from the Carcassi method. So I was a late beginner. I was self-taught. And I remember sitting in the kitchen for hours and trying to figure out how to play the first few bars of Bach's Bouree on the classical guitar. I'll place a link of me playing that at the bottom. I think I recorded at least a couple of videos on that, but I'll place one of the recent ones. Last summer, I think I recorded a version of it. And it's a difficult piece to play because there's counterpoint in there, and the voices go in different directions. And Bach was the king of counterpoint, and that piece is does not even feature difficult counterpoint compared to, for example, the very next movement in the suite, which is the jig. The jig is extremely difficult, and I can play it. I don't think I ever recorded it, but I can play it. And anyways, that's my first memory of sitting down and trying to play a piece and thinking to myself, who wrote this? And who is this person named Bach? And wow, this piece would sound so beautiful if I could actually play it. I think I was able to play like 6 measures, and then I wouldn't know what to do because the hand moves up in the higher positions, and I wasn't advanced enough to figure out how to move up to the higher positions. When I was in college, I played lots of Bach. I listened to a lot of Bach. I used to be a BMI member. Remember BMI, when you subscribe to a CD service and you get new music every month? And I was a Bach freak. I would buy tons of Bach records and listen to them. My favorite, I had 2 favorite Bach recordings that were not guitar music, that were orchestral. It was St. Matthew's Passion. That is just out of this world. And of course the Brandenburg Concertos. I got a cold, sorry, a little stuffy there. The Brandenburg Concertos, there's 6 of them. And I remember that while in college, my first year of musicianship courses, our final exam was on the 2nd Brandenburg Concerto, which is in F major. So I kind of have that thing memorized. But anyways, those are my 2 favorite Bach works. But there's not one piece, or one section, or one phrase, or even one measure in the music of Bach that I don't like. He's just one of those composers that wrote every single note in such a way that is just amazing. You can look him up, you can read some interesting facts about his life. about his music, about his faith. He was a family man. I believe that over the years he had as many as 20 children, 19 or 20 children. They didn't all survive. You can read about the story when he taught himself how to play as a child. You can read about his devotion to God. He was a very faithful man and wrote all his music for the glory of God. He was the type of musician that could have been really proud and a show-off, and in spite of his huge talent, he chose the opposite. He chose to be humble, to be modest. I can go on and on and on. This video is not rehearsed. I'm just sitting here thinking of Bach. I can go on and on about different amazing things from his life. So I'll stop here and I'll go listen to some Bach music on the radio, because they're playing Bach all day on WFMT. If you have a classical music station in your area, I'm assuming they're playing lots of Bach today. WFMT is. So I'm gonna go listen to some Bach. Then today I'll play some Bach. It's a busy day, but I'll find some time to play some Bach. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you're welcome to. Give this video a like. And go read something about Bach. Even on Google today, when you log in to Google, you'll see a little Bach thing at the top. Click on that thing and go listen to some Bach. Thanks for watching the video. Have a great day. Like Bach used to say, Soli Deo Gloria. To God only be the glory. Thanks for watching my video. God bless. Bye-bye now.